Guardian, the unbreakable bond. Shadows of the past. Hunter's ears twitched at the faintest sound as dawn broke over Mapleton. The German shepherd stood motionless at the edge of the yard, amber eyes scanning the tree-line with unnerving focus. Something had disturbed his morning patrol, a scent, perhaps, or a sound too subtle for human detection. Sarah Marshall watched her canine partner from the porch, coffee mug warming her hands against the autumn chill. After 3 years together, she had learned to trust Hunter's instincts implicitly. "What is it, boy?" she murmured, though she didn't expect an answer. Hunter's muscular frame tensed, his attention fixed on something invisible to Sarah. Few people understood what made Hunter exceptional. Behind those watchful eyes lay a complex history, one Sarah had pieced together when she'd rescued him from a shadowy government facility 2 years earlier. Project Cerberus, they'd called it. A classified program that had enhanced selected German shepherds with specialized training to identify psychological vulnerability markers in potential targets. But Hunter had been different. Where other dogs in the program had performed as expected, Hunter had rebelled against his conditioning. The official report had labeled him defective and scheduled him for termination. Sarah, then working as a K9 behavioral specialist, had recognized something remarkable in his resistance, a moral compass that transcended his training. The moving truck next door caught Hunter's attention. New neighbors had arrived yesterday, a young single mother named Rebecca and her 5-year-old son Anthony. Sarah had briefly introduced herself, noting the boy's wide-eyed fascination with Hunter from behind his mother's protective grasp. Hunter's demeanor shifted as Anthony appeared in the neighboring yard, clutching a small dinosaur toy. The German shepherd's posture softened, his tail swaying gently. Something about the child triggered Hunter's protective instincts, perhaps the boy's cautious movements or the lingering shadow of fear in his eyes. Sarah didn't yet know that Anthony and his mother had fled an abusive situation in another state, their new identities and location carefully guarded secrets. She couldn't have known that the shadows Hunter sensed at the edge of their peaceful neighborhood weren't figments of his imagination, but harbingers of danger to come. All she knew was that Hunter was watching. And Hunter never missed a thing. First contact. The elementary school buzzed with morning activity as parents dropped off their children under the watchful eye of Hunter, who sat alertly beside Sarah's unmarked vehicle. Their presence was part of Mapleton's new school safety initiative, where Sarah served as security consultant. But for Hunter, this assignment meant something more, a purpose aligned with his deeper nature rather than his original training. Hunter's attention locked onto a sleek black SUV that had circled the block 3 times. The vehicle's tinted windows concealed its occupants, but Hunter's hackles rose instinctively. Sarah noticed his reaction, her hand dropping to rest reassuringly on his back. "I see it too," she whispered, reaching for her radio. Among the stream of children entering the school, Hunter spotted Anthony, clutching his mother's hand. The boy still moved with that cautious hesitancy that spoke of past traumas. As they passed, Anthony glanced toward Hunter, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Hunter maintained perfect stillness, but his attention never left the child. When the black SUV finally parked across from the school entrance, Hunter's muscles coiled with tension. A tall man in a charcoal suit emerged, his movements casual yet calculated as he surveyed the school grounds. Nothing about him appeared overtly threatening, yet Hunter's reaction was immediate and visceral, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. Sarah had learned to trust these warnings. "Let's check it out," she murmured, guiding Hunter toward the stranger. The man's eyes narrowed at their approach, his hand slipping into his jacket pocket in a motion too smooth to be innocent. Hunter positioned himself slightly ahead of Sarah, his training automatically assessing threat level and optimal response paths. "School security," Sarah called out, her tone professional but firm. "Can I help you with something?" The stranger's smile never reached his eyes. "Just waiting for someone," he answered smoothly, his gaze drifting toward the school entrance before settling on Hunter with an unsettling flash of recognition. Hunter stared back, a memory stirring. The scent, the posture, the subtle markers of deception. His specialized training had once taught him to identify such men as handlers, to obey them. But his instincts told him something different. When the man nodded almost imperceptibly before returning to his vehicle and driving away, Sarah made note of the license plate. But Hunter had memorized something else. The man's unique scent signature, the rhythm of his movements, the subtle tells of predatory intent. Hunter would recognize him anywhere. What neither Sarah nor Hunter could know was that Anthony was more than a random child. He was a specific target, a loose end in the life his mother had fled. And the man in the charcoal suit was merely the first scout in a dangerous game of recovery. The narrow escape. 3 days passed without incident, but Hunter remained vigilant. During his evening patrol of the neighborhood with Sarah, he always lingered longest near Anthony's home, checking perimeter scents for anything unusual. Tonight, something had changed. A new scent marked the back fence, fresh, human, deliberate. Hunter traced it methodically, his training engaging automatically as he reconstructed the intruder's movements. Sarah followed, trusting his lead until they discovered the disturbed soil beneath Anthony's bedroom window. "Good boy," she whispered, examining the footprints with her flashlight. Someone had been watching the house. The next morning brought clear skies and the school's annual fall festival. Children played on the decorated playground while parents chatted near folding tables laden with baked goods. Sarah had volunteered for security duty, positioning herself and Hunter near the school's west entrance where they could observe without alarming the festive crowd. Hunter spotted Anthony immediately. The boy moved hesitantly between activity stations, his mother encouraging him from a short distance away. He seemed less tense today, even smiling as he succeeded at a ring toss game. When Anthony received a small stuffed dog prize, he hugged it close, glancing around until he spotted Hunter. For the first time, the boy offered a tentative wave in their direction. Hunter's ears perked forward, acknowledging the greeting. But his attention quickly shifted as a familiar scent reached him, the man from the SUV, approaching from the parking lot. Only this time, he wasn't alone. 3 men moved with coordinated precision through the crowd, their casual clothing and relaxed demeanor masking their purpose from everyone except Hunter. His training recognized their formation instantly, a strategic approach pattern designed to isolate a target. And their focus was unmistakably on Anthony. Hunter's muscles tensed as he tracked their movements. The lead man positioned himself near Rebecca, initiating conversation with practiced charm. The second drifted toward the building exit, blocking the clearest escape route. The third moved directly toward Anthony, who stood alone at the edge of the playground, absorbed in his new toy. Sarah hadn't noticed yet. The men were too skilled, their movements too subtle for most observers. But Hunter had been trained to see exactly this. Without waiting for command, he darted forward, weaving through the crowd with fluid precision. The third man had almost reached Anthony, hand extending casually toward the boy's shoulder, when 85 pounds of focused German Shepherd inserted itself between them. Hunter didn't growl or bare his teeth. He simply stood, an immovable barrier between predator and prey, his amber eyes locked on the man with unmistakable recognition. The man froze, genuine surprise breaking through his professional composure. "Well, look who it is," he muttered. K9-7462. Still playing hero. Anthony stumbled backward, fear flashing across his face, not of Hunter, but of the stranger. Hunter remained perfectly positioned, his body language communicating a clear message: "You will not pass." Sarah arrived seconds later, quickly assessing the situation. "Anthony, come stand by me, please," she called calmly, her hand moving to the radio at her belt. The man's partners noticed the confrontation, their casual demeanors shifting subtly as they communicated through nearly imperceptible signals. The first man disengaged from Rebecca, while the one at the exit began moving toward a service road behind the school. "Your dog seems confused about his job," the man said to Sarah, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "He was trained for acquisition, not protection." Sarah's expression hardened. "Hunter knows exactly what his job is. And right now, you're leaving this festival before I have officers escort you out." The standoff lasted only moments before the man stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. "Another time, then," he said, his gaze shifting between Hunter and Anthony before he turned and walked away. But Hunter knew this wasn't over. The scent of intent lingered in the air. These men would return. As Anthony pressed against Sarah's side, one small hand tentatively reaching to touch Hunter's fur, the German Shepherd made a silent promise. No harm would come to this child. Not while he stood watch. Uncovered darkness. That night, Hunter paced restlessly by the windows, monitoring the street with unwavering vigilance. Sarah had made calls after the festival incident, reporting the suspicious men and requesting increased patrols in the neighborhood. But bureaucratic wheels turned slowly, and Hunter sensed time was running short. A sound from next door snapped his attention to full alert, the faint scrape of a window opening. Sarah was in the shower, her service weapon locked in its safe. Hunter hesitated only briefly before pushing through the dog door and slipping into the darkness. The intruder had already entered Anthony's home through the kitchen window, a different man from those at the festival, but carrying the same predatory scent signature that Hunter had been conditioned to recognize. Moving silently through the shadows, Hunter tracked the intruder's progress through the house. The man paused at Anthony's bedroom door, removing something from his pocket, a cloth and a small bottle. Hunter knew this routine. He had observed it during his training. Sedation before extraction. Quick, quiet, efficient. As the door inched open, Hunter made his move. There was no growl, no warning, just sudden, decisive action. The German Shepherd's powerful frame slammed into the intruder, knocking him off balance. The man's hand moved to his waistband, reaching for a concealed weapon, but Hunter was faster. His jaws closed around the man's wrist with precisely calibrated pressure, enough to immobilize, not enough to maim. Anthony's frightened cry from the bedroom was followed by Rebecca's panicked shout from down the hall. The intruder struggled, kicking at Hunter, but the German Shepherd held firm, using his weight and training to pin the man against the wall. Blue and red lights flashed outside as police responded to Rebecca's frantic 911 call. Hunter maintained his hold until officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Only when commanded by familiar police voices did he release the intruder and back away, body still positioned protectively toward Anthony's room. In the chaos that followed, Hunter found himself next to Anthony's bed, where the terrified boy sat clutching his stuffed dog. When Hunter gently rested his head on the mattress beside him, Anthony's trembling hand reached out, burying itself in the thick fur at Hunter's neck. "You saved me," the boy whispered, his first words to the German Shepherd carrying wonder rather than fear. Later, as investigators processed the scene, Sarah learned the truth from Rebecca. Her ex-husband, a wealthy businessman with dangerous connections, had hired professionals to reclaim his son after Rebecca had fled with Anthony to escape his abuse. The men at the festival and tonight's intruder were part of a specialized recovery team, former military contractors who operated in legal gray areas for the right price. "They won't stop," Rebecca said, voice breaking. "He'll just send more people." Sarah watched Hunter, who hadn't left Anthony's side since the incident. The German Shepherd lay next to the boy on the couch, his vigilant eyes regularly scanning exits and windows. "Then we need to stop them at the source," Sarah replied, an idea taking shape as she observed the unbreakable bond forming between the child and his guardian. The breaking point. The safe house nestled in the mountains outside town was known to few and officially existed nowhere. Its security systems had been designed to protect witnesses against the most determined threats. Now, it sheltered Anthony and Rebecca while authorities built their case against the boy's father. Hunter had refused to leave Anthony's side during the transfer, his behavior so insistent that Sarah had convinced her superiors to include him in the protection detail. For 3 days, the German Shepherd had maintained his vigilant guard, sleeping beside Anthony's bed and providing a comfort that no human protector could match. The boy, previously withdrawn and nearly silent, had begun speaking more freely in Hunter's presence. Each night, Anthony would whisper his fears and hopes to the attentive German Shepherd before falling asleep, with one hand resting in Hunter's fur. On the 4th morning, Hunter's behavior changed. He became restless, repeatedly checking windows and doorways, his posture communicating clear concern. Sarah had learned to trust these warnings. "Something's wrong," she told the safe house team, ordering an immediate security check. The attack came at dusk, coordinated and precise. The first sign was the communication system failure, followed by the perimeter alarms going silent one by one. Hunter's reaction was immediate, his body tensing beside Anthony as the first muffled sounds of conflict reached them from the outer security office. "They're here," Anthony whispered, terror returning to his eyes. Hunter responded by gently tugging the boy's sleeve, guiding him toward the bedroom closet that Sarah had previously established as a safe position. The German Shepherd's training had included crisis protocols, protect and conceal the primary subject until extraction became possible. As Anthony huddled in the closet, Hunter positioned himself at the bedroom door, listening intently to the approaching footsteps. 3 intruders had breached the main building, their movements suggesting professional tactical training. Sarah and the remaining guard were engaged elsewhere in the structure. Gunfire had briefly echoed from the west wing before falling ominously silent. When the bedroom door burst open, Hunter launched forward with calculated precision, targeting the lead intruder's weapon arm. The man cried out as powerful jaws clamped down, the handgun clattering to the floor. The second intruder raised his weapon, but Hunter had already released and pivoted, his powerful body slamming into the man's legs and toppling him backward. The third intruder paused in the doorway, reaching not for a weapon but for a small electronic device. K9-7462, Override Command Alpha Tango Victor. Stand down. Hunter froze momentarily, a wave of conditioned response washing through his system. These were the deactivation codes from his original training, commands designed to override his will and return him to compliant obedience. For a heartbeat, conflict raged within Hunter's mind, biological programming struggling against something deeper, something that had awakened during his time with Sarah and strengthened in Anthony's presence. The intruder smiled coldly, misinterpreting Hunter's hesitation as submission. Good dog. Now move aside. Instead, Hunter charged. The man barely had time to register shock before powerful jaws closed around his wrist, forcing him to drop the electronic device. Hunter's decision was made. No command could override the choice he had made to protect, not harm. The sounds of renewed fighting in the hallway preceded Sarah's arrival, weapon drawn. The scene she encountered, 3 incapacitated intruders and Hunter standing guard at the closet door, told her everything. Hunter, she called softly. Where's Anthony? The German Shepherd moved to the closet, pawing gently at the door. When it opened, Anthony launched himself forward, arms wrapping around Hunter's neck in desperate gratitude. As Sarah secured the scene and reinforcements arrived, Anthony remained pressed against Hunter's side, one hand buried in his fur. You didn't listen to the bad man, the boy whispered. You stayed good. Hunter's response was to rest his head protectively against Anthony's shoulder, amber eyes watchful even in this moment of connection. His choice had been made long ago, perhaps from the first moment of his rebellion against his original training. No command could ever again turn him from protector to predator. Unbreakable. 6 months later, Hunter trotted across the training yard of the newly established Children's Trauma Support Center, his movements purposeful but relaxed. Behind him followed Anthony, now more confident in his steps, a small training treat held carefully in his hand. Good job, Hunter, the boy called as the German Shepherd successfully guided a younger child through a trust exercise. Sarah watched from the observation area, pride evident in her expression. The center had been her proposal, a facility where specially trained dogs, many rescued from the now disbanded Project Cerberus, helped traumatized children recover their sense of safety and trust. Anthony's father remained in custody awaiting trial, his network of contractors dismantled by a joint task force. Rebecca had found work at the center as an administrator, her first-hand experience with trauma and recovery making her invaluable to the program. But the most remarkable transformation had been Hunter's. The German Shepherd who had once been deemed defective for resisting his conditioning had become the program's star, a living example of choice overcoming programming. His extraordinary sensitivity to children's emotional states, originally developed for sinister purposes, now served to heal rather than harm. Anthony had become Hunter's unofficial assistant, his own recovery accelerated by helping other children connect with the dogs. The boy who had once been too frightened to speak now confidently explained to new arrivals how Hunter had saved him and would protect them too. As the afternoon session ended, Hunter returned to Anthony's side, pressing gently against the boy's leg in their familiar greeting. Together they walked toward Sarah, the bond between them visible in their synchronized movements. Ready to go home? Sarah asked, gathering her notes from the day's observations. Anthony nodded, one hand resting naturally on Hunter's back. Hunter says it's been a good day, he announced with the simple certainty of a child who believed absolutely in his connection with the animal. Sarah smiled. knowing better than to question this communication. The bond between Hunter and Anthony transcended ordinary understanding, forged in crisis, strengthened through healing, and now serving as a foundation for helping others. As they walked toward the parking lot, Hunter maintained his protective position slightly ahead of Anthony, amber eyes continuously scanning their surroundings. Some habits wouldn't change, nor should they. The German Shepherd had been created as a sentinel, but he had transformed himself into a guardian. In the fading afternoon light, Hunter paused briefly, ears perked toward the distant tree line. For a moment, old instincts assessed, evaluated, and confirmed. No threat detected. Anthony waited patiently beside him, trusting Hunter's judgment completely. The German Shepherd turned back to his companions, his posture relaxing as they continued toward home. His purpose was clear, his choice affirmed each day: to protect, not pursue; to guard, not hunt; to heal, not harm. Where programming had failed to define him, love had succeeded. And in that transformation lay the most powerful lesson of all, that the capacity to choose compassion existed even in creatures trained for the darkest purposes. Hunter had discovered this truth first, breaking free from his conditioning to become something more than his creators had intended. Now, walking beside the child who called him hero, the German Shepherd moved forward into a future built on an unbreakable bond, one forged not through command or control, but through the profound choice to protect what is most vulnerable. In the end, it wasn't training that defined Hunter's purpose, but the heart that beat beneath his powerful frame, a heart that had chosen its own path and would guard it faithfully forever. The silent guardians among us. In the shadows of our everyday world, real-life hunters exist, service dogs whose extraordinary abilities transcend mere training. Every day, across America, these four-legged heroes detect seizures before they strike, alert diabetics to dangerous blood sugar levels, and sense anxiety attacks moments before they overwhelm their humans. Their gifts aren't magical. They're biological miracles, attuned to subtle changes invisible to the human eye. For children who've endured trauma, these animals become lifelines, breaking through barriers that therapists struggle to penetrate. At veterans' hospitals and children's trauma centers, German Shepherds, just like Hunter, place their heads on trembling laps, their steady presence anchoring souls adrift in fear. They ask nothing in return. The statistics tell a stunning story. Trauma survivors with service animals show recovery rates 60% higher than those without, their nightmares less frequent, their reintegration more complete. What science struggles to explain, these animals instinctively provide unconditional protection when the world feels dangerous. Perhaps the most beautiful truth is this: in their choice to protect rather than harm, these animals remind us of our own capacity to overcome our darkest programming. In their unwavering gaze, we find not just companionship, but redemption. Thank you for watching this heartfelt story. We hope it touched your heart and left you with something meaningful to reflect on. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more inspiring stories like this. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next video.